I'd like to say that I wasn't the first director appointed to this, but what happened was that there was some sort of altercation, and I was under contract as a very junior director at the BBC, and
the fact he's so young, ladies and gentlemen.
and the reality was that I was suddenly told this is what I'm going to be on the show, and I got these scripts, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, when you get a script with these characters called Her and Zar and Ugg, and what do you do with them? And I then walked into this office where I met this very interesting and attractive woman called Verity Lambert. And I said, what are we going to do with this? And she said, we're going to have to make it work. So I would confess to being a rather reluctant recruit at this point. However, the first episode, which was the one that established the characters, I did like. I mean, it was so intriguing, the idea of an unearthly child and this strange old man and this telephone box, which now has become iconic, but at that time seemed unbelievable. And then we went, so in other words, I'm trying to say, as a director who had had aspirations of grand drama, I didn't know where I was going with this. So I'm amazed, because I have to say that I have not seen any of these. I've got a box set, but I deliberately did not want to look at them. I wanted to see what happened tonight. And I must say, watching it, I mean, there were moments where I thought, oh my goodness. But how did I get these wonderful actors to do what they had to do? There's one of them. How did they actually have to articulate all this and make it at least feasible and not totally laughable, and yet keep the suspense going? But I think somehow or other, I hope that worked for all of you, it did sort of work. And so I'm kind of relieved and therefore very happy to be a part of it. So that's where I come from.
Obviously, everybody hopes that any new series is going to be successful, but there are no guarantees in this world, and certainly no guarantee that 50 years later we'd be talking about it and celebrating it now. But I'll just start perhaps with sort of Carole and William. You were brought in, obviously you were, William Hartnell took the sort of the title role, but you were very much the kind of the action hero of the piece, and as the Doctor's granddaughter, you had a role to play as well. And I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about when you first signed on, and about your memories, the sort of the first memories of the set and so forth.
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say is, having watched it, perhaps rather like Waris, for the first time for a long time, I thought it was great. I was astonished and relieved. And I really felt that the beginning of Doctor Who continued, I hope, throughout our time in Doctor Who. And the secret, in a sense, was everybody took it very seriously. We believed in it. And it may well have struck us as we read it originally as something rather far-fetched. But when we got into it and were doing it, we were committed. And Bill was a wonderful leader for that. He was meticulous, and he wanted always the best of acting. I don't know that he got it all the time, but he was himself a great leader for us, I think.
Yep.
Oh, golly gosh, where do you begin? Did you ask Do you actually say what were our thoughts of the set?
Well, just in terms of your memories of first being involved, and obviously I know it's a long time ago, but it's the first time that you were given the part, and and your memories of those early years, if you like.
It's 50 years.
And
she hasn't changed a bit. Oh. Look at the state of me. Look at her. It's unfair. It's true.
You can
it's
come
unbelievable. No.
Maybe Little Bird.
Sorry.
I did enjoy jumping on your back, Jeremy.
We do know the answer to the question, what do cavemen wear under their skins now, at least?
It was incredibly exciting, of course, the whole concept. Although my excitement was tempered a little bit by the fact that I wasn't allowed to do it, so I wanted to do it.
How did you want to do it?
I wanted her to be, well, I mean, you know, she was an alien. She was from space, from some planet that we at the time didn't mention, but now called Gallifrey. I wanted her to be a bit weird, a bit strange, a bit unusual. I wanted her...
You were, Carole, you were.
Thank you so much. And I must say, this has nothing to do with Waris. I think he would have allowed me to be as strange as I wanted to be. It was all to do with that Sidney Newman. I remember after the very first one we did, which was the pilot, I don't know how many of you have seen the pilot, but I did not put my all into it, because I knew I wouldn't be allowed to put my all into it, but I did make her a bit stranger and a bit odder. And afterwards, I knew something had gone wrong, because Sidney Newman came up to me and he put his arm around my shoulders. And he always, I seem to remember, used to put his arm around your shoulders as a prelude to telling you off. Perhaps it was only me, because I was little. I don't know if he put his arm around your shoulders. No. You could fight back. But a number of times he'd come up to me and smiled, which was also a bad sign, and put his arm around my shoulders and said, you know, love, he said, good, but take it down a bit. And in fact, what he meant was take it down a lot. What they really wanted, I think you'll agree, Waris, correct me if I'm not, what they really wanted was for me to represent the teenagers or the kids out there watching, so that they could look at it through my eyes, and I would more or less react as they would have reacted. And you see, again, in the later ones, I really didn't want her to scream at the monsters. I thought it was a shame, because she would have surely encountered so many other odd aliens. And as they are now, I'm so jealous of them now. They talk to them and discuss things with them and say things like, oh, aren't you beautiful? It's the most hideous-looking thing you've ever seen. But, you know, it's I think it's incredible now.
I'm jumping a few years now, but is that one of the reasons why you ended up leaving, because you felt as if you just, you know, they weren't giving you that kind of breathing space for your character?
I really ended up leaving because I felt that my character wasn't being developed. I don't think they knew how to write for me, because I think probably because they cast me as a 15-year-old and didn't want her actually to grow old enough so that she would lust after Ian Chesterton, or perhaps even a monster. I don't know why they couldn't write for me, but I just felt that it was so repetitive. I felt I was doing the same thing week in, week out, and I used to
This way!
I mean, you were a great ensemble cast. The four of you looked as if you worked incredibly well together.
Oh, we loved each other, didn't we? We loved each other.
I think that's one of the great secrets of it, as far as we were concerned, was we all got on.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun.
Lots of giggles.
And we were serious when we did the job. But we made a lot of jokes about cavemen and things like that before we got there.
That brings us on nicely to Jeremy. So Jeremy, I mean, incredibly difficult role to do in a sense. I mean, to have to be something that is so completely different than anything we've ever kind of encountered, and actually you completely pull it off. Can you sort of tell us about your memories of working on Unearthly Child?
Why do you ask me these questions? I'm looking for fire. That was the performance. A sub, I know Brian, so you won't mind. A sub Brian Blessed, that's what I want.
I'm assuming, by the way, the rocks they threw at you were not rocks.
Oh, one or two were. It's Waris, actually. Waris got in touch and actually invited me out to dinner at the centre, the TV centre, I remember, and sort of went through this, and I said, "Is Doctor No?" Because that was at the time. He said, "No, Doctor Who." And sold me the idea. And also he said, "Do you know anybody else who could actually play your adversary?" Similar build. And I knew Derek Newark. So that's how we came to be a double act together. Yeah.
Can I bring you into this now? From obviously, you've written about your grandfather, you've written a book about your grandfather, and obviously, William Hartnell was your grandfather. And I wonder if you could just talk to us from your experience and your knowledge. He initially was quite hesitant to take the part on, I believe.
Well, I was 6 at the time it was shown, so I was not aware of that. My father was his agent, so obviously we were, as a family, involved, but it wasn't something I knew about. I mean, as a child, I watched it because he was my grandfather, so it seemed perfectly normal, because if you grow up with a family of actors, it seems normal. Watching it now, it seems quite scary, actually, for a 6-year-old. And having said boldly that everyone of 6 watched it, I'm now thinking, oh, it was actually quite scary. But it did have a reputation for people watching it from behind the sofa. But it was prime time, 5:30, whatever it was, so you would have had a lot of children watching it. I don't really know anything about it, except what I've found out subsequently about any hesitancy about doing it. But he was a very good character actor, and character actors love the challenge of a new role. And it was a completely unique, I suspect a certain amount of a blank slate, with a character that they weren't quite sure, quirky, whatever. So I'm sure he relished the chance to just create something from scratch like that. And he was very serious about his art. So he would have taken it seriously. And I think that shows the fact that he did take it seriously. And obviously there were very few channels then. It was hugely watched and just caught the imagination.
Donald, can I bring you in at this stage? Obviously, I've not brought you in until now because you weren't obviously involved with that first story, but you came in as a script editor a bit further on the line when the show was a tiny bit more established.
Yes.
And I just wonder from your point of view, because obviously the mythology of Doctor Who and the sort of the do's and don'ts of Doctor Who now are kind of quite fixed in terms of things that the character of the Doctor is allowed to do and isn't allowed to do, and people kind of, I think, have a sense of, even though he is regeneration into a different kind of character, there are still essential things that are at the heart of Doctor Who. Were you still at the point where you could kind of create that mythology and change things, or was there already a kind of set of rules that you felt you were working within?
To a degree, I suspect one did, but there were certain things which I always felt had to be written in stone even then, such as, if possible, you do not, as it were, do something that historically was not possible, or was sort of so anachronistic as to create ripples beyond that the moment you're in. You must never do that, and it's rather like I've been working on a story about an assassination on Abraham Lincoln before Gettysburg, and with regard to the Doctor, and of course he has to, in a sense, stop it, and he is allowed to stop that. So that is, if you like, interfering, but that is interfering in the fiction that I have already created, and therefore that is permissible. If, on the other hand, he turned up at the theatre and nobbled, what's his name? You know, no, I'm afraid, no, you know. It's those, it's knowing which pool you can muddy.